Today's episode features brand new guest Luna Whitcomb, who's here to share some amazing tips and tricks on optimizing your soil biology and making your plants happier, healthier, and more quality through natural farming techniques. Now stay tuned, we've got our natural farming class coming up October 11th and 12th. Go to growcast.com/events to learn more about the OK Calyx Natural Farming Immersive. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to Growcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in again today. Go to growcast.com to see all of the archived episodes. There you can also find membership and the seeds and the classes. It's all there waiting for you. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Today, we've got a brand new guest to the show, natural farming enthusiast, breeder, and so much more. We have, for the very first time today, Luna Whitcomb is joining us from Loon All Day on Instagram. What's up, Luna? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jordan?
Doing fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We've been putting this together for a minute. I've been following you for a while on your Instagram page.
Thank you.
You had the main page taken down for a second. We're back in action, which I love to hear.
Yeah.
And it's great to see you educating again. Luna, for the first time listeners, how about a brief intro on yourself and what brought you to cultivation and breeding and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Luna Whitcomb. I've been cultivating since I was 20, so about 17 years now. I was originally introduced to the plant through like hydroponic cultivation. I've always been a enjoyer / consumer of the plant, and had opportunities to work with it. Had some really good mentors, and they were doing living soil practices, and I just got really, really, really deep into it and really dove into like the science of soil and fermentation, different natural farming techniques, microscopy, enzymology, entomology, mycology. And it just fascinated me. And I just continued to dive deeper and deeper and deeper. And it became very, very rewarding in the quality of my flower, as well as the opportunities that it brought into my life. And I just love the integration of nature and like its beauty and all the fascinating intricacies behind biology and how they interact. And it's so great. It is my passion. It's the one thing that I've been doing. And now I do consulting work. I have my own projects. I do breeding, and it's just such a great art and like artistic outlet for me that I've just found great purpose behind.
Wow, I love that. Fantastic. I can tell that you are really passionate about it. And you're right. The thing that's so cool about growing and growing your own, and we all know that it starts with trying to grow our own flower, but then everybody moves into vegetables and herbs and quickly after, right? But what you said is so important. When you learn the art of growing your own, you learn so much more. It changes the way you look at the world. Like you said, from the insects to the microbes to just the natural world around you. It really takes this one piece, and introduces you to a whole lifestyle and a whole journey of infinite learning, infinite complexity. So I can hear the passion in your voice, and I see the passion when you teach too. You got a really cool gardening style. Your plants look great, by the way. You grow these, I say kind of humble style. I cut my teeth in humble. Yeah,
Definitely.
sure. Because a lot of the growers out there, big containers, living soil, big plants. What can I say? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like to grow my outdoor really big, and I do greenhouse and indoor as well. Yeah.
Why don't you talk about that? Not just your kind of growing strategy, but also the core philosophy of your living soil style.
Well, it's all about mimicking an ecosystem and creating a fully functioning ecosystem within the soil, which as itself is a living organism. So I integrate as much as I can to completely close the loop of cultivation, and like all the different aspects behind like what an ecosystem would be, from bacteria to protozoa, nematodes, fungi, as well as companion plants, cover crops, and beneficial insects. And as well, there's a few sections of like a full ecosystem that we can't completely introduce, like grazers or things that are going to consume the plant, that we have to fill in on our own.
Go around and chew on the plants. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I run around. I chew the plants. No, I mean, like pulling the plants out of the ground or cutting them back, stuff like that.
I got you.
But yeah, sometimes I run around. I chew on my plants. They're a little bit bitter, but
but trying to mimic that full soil food web, a lot of the times living soil gardeners can really focus on the bacteria and the fungi, which obviously play a huge role, and you can get very far in a modified growing medium and all that. Sounds like you go beyond that though. Like you said, including the whole soil food web in your grow.
Yes, absolutely. And it's important to pay attention to things like soil mineral balancing theory,
Mm.
where we acknowledge the different ratios of nutrient ions and how they antagonize and synergize with each other, to make sure that we have a completely balanced soil. And that needs to be maintained as well. And then I focus a lot on biology and enzymology and mycology and entomology, which are all the different aspects of an ecosystem, and let the soil grow the plant.
Oof.
And then playing with different ways of different strategies and fun systems to influence your like genetic expression and really maximize your aroma, your secondary metabolites, your volatile organic compounds, and things like that, to grow just the best, the
Top
best flower
quality,
that
the
we can.
stinkiest, stickiest. Let's get into that. I would love to go step by step there. So, soil mineral balancing, this is a huge topic. Always trying to like tweak my mineral program. Every run I try to pick up something new. But you're using like a soil forward nutritional style, but also using a lot of ferments, a lot of external nutrition going in there.
Mhm.
Can you talk about what a perfectly balanced soil looks like and how you can add these ferments to kind of fill in the gaps?
Sure, totally. However, I will say that a lot of the ferments and techniques that I integrate are mostly for like biostimulation, enzymes, and organic acids, which act as like phytohormones and stuff like that. I typically don't introduce fermentations as a form of nutrient
Mineral
sources.
heavy. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'll build my soil, with your typical amendment mixes. There's different options for different nutrients that you need. You could use alfalfa, you could use blood meal for nitrogen, you could use, soy-based amino acids, or whatever else nitrogen source. There's different forms of nitrogen. So we have like our different amendments that we can select, and you can have different soil mixes that have different profiles of amendments used that can still have the proper ratios for our nutrient ions. But those different amendments that we use will affect the genetic expression of the plant throughout its growth cycle because of the different diversity of amino acids, enzymes, and carbohydrates that it has that provide enzymatic and carbon cofactors, essentially, that allow for the biosynthesis of certain volatile organic compounds to be present inside of our flower. I know that might be a little
No, I
convoluted to
like
some
that.
people.
Eh,
So, like,
That's why there's
uh,
differences between my buddy's living soil grow of this cut and my living soil grow of this cut. Even the forms of nitrogen, even the
absolutely.
forms of carbohydrates are slightly influencing the way that this, not just this phenotype, but this grow comes out.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can grow the same cut, the
Yeah.
same exact clone of a plant in living soil or in cocoa, synthetically, or to two different soil compositions,
Yeah.
and it'll express differently. And so that's in the outdoor and like wine and tobacco cultivation, communities. That's what we call terroir,
Terroir,
right?
sure, yeah.
Which is a very specific topographical expression of a plant. And even like throughout the years, the climate conditions and stuff like that, they
Right.
change the way that a plant expresses because it allows for different ratios of organic compounds, of all, aroma compounds to biosynthesize that require different prerequisites, like different um, cofactors of those enzymes and carbohydrates to allow them to be biosynthesized in the plant. And if you don't have them present, they won't be present in the end product of the flower. So our different like profiles of soil that we use, our different amendments that we use, with different environmental conditions, and organic acid profiles, they will affect the way that our plant matures and expresses itself. So when I'm using like ferments and stuff like that, I go after very specific things, or sometimes not specific things. I keep it very broad, or I keep it very specific. So let's say I'm trying to target like a phytohormone, like jasmonic acid. I know that jasmonic acid is more dense inside of premature fruit.
Yep.
So I will use premature apples, premature peaches, premature berries, to harness that high concentration of jasmonic acid. Jasmonic acid is a stress response hormone. It is the plant's, um, it's like a physiological response to being masticated, typically. So it's an evolutionary trait that plants developed to when they get eaten by an animal, right?
Yeah.
So like they get consumed, they get munched down, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to die." And so they like the
Produce.
munching quality of itself actually will biosynthesize jasmonic acid in the cells, and the plant it'll just start to like burst like a growth spurt.
Yeah.
Right. But we can imitate that reaction by harnessing a ferment with a high jasmonic acid profile and giving it to the soil. And there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do like that, like imitating a pest pressure by introducing chitin or chitosan. To stimulate that response. Like if a plant is getting attacked by pests, its typical response is to pump terpenes to deter and push those pests away. And so we can hit it with those compounds to mimic those like stress responses to get like the expression and like the defense reaction. Because that's what I like to use.
We don't want to release aphids into our garden, but we've all seen the studies that show that plants that have a little bit of aphid pressure increase their terpene production. So it's this like biomimicry, and then also a little bit of trickery here of like, hey, let's pretend like aphids are coming and start making terpenes as if, right? Now, back to the jasmonic acid. This is something that I've seen people implementing in their grow with great success. You know, if you have a really good nutritional program, really good soil program, there are other things you can do. Like you said, these biostimulants can really take it over the top. I love what you said about premature fruits. I've seen people doing like seed sprout teas and things like that.
Yeah, that's another approach. Yeah,
but you said the underripe apples and underripe fruits are gonna carry a lot of this jasmonic acid.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really
so
cool.
And then as they grow, the different and they just have higher density of compounds in general, like of carbohydrates and stuff. And then as they grow, those things kind of mostly turn into sugars. And they have less like phytohormone density. So premature stuff. And if you look at my profile, you can see that I recently made a premature peach FPE.
Come and join Growcast membership, the greatest community in cannabis cultivation. What are you waiting for? Growcast.com/membership. It's something that every grower should have. Not only will we personally solve your garden problems and be on the lookout 24/7 for your messages so we can take care of anything in your garden. You don't have to go to Google. It's a terrible idea to run to Facebook. Come and get a Growcast membership. We'll walk you through the whole process, fixing up your plants, identifying any pests or deficiencies, and teach you what's going on and how to solve it in the future. Not to mention you get to connect with hundreds of growers from around the world, trading all sorts of genetics, helping each other out in their garden. We're a positive community of growers. We're not here to argue about breeders or provenance or anything like that. We're here to uplift each other in our gardens. Plus, you get all sorts of perks, like weekly live streams for members only. You get discounts on products that nobody else gets. You even get 20% off the products we're talking about in this episode. Come and check it out. Growcast.com/membership. It's the price of lunch. Every grower should have one. And the fact is, you shouldn't be growing alone. And with a Growcast membership, you never have to grow alone. Come and join your new cultivation family. Would love to have you in there. Growcast.com/membership.
And I walk you through the process of how I do it, from like actually collecting the lactobacillus in my backyard to then bringing it to, adding molasses and then adding like beets and premature fruits and stuff like that. But also you can see me do it with berries and other fruit as well.
Wow. Super cool. Now the beet extract or the beet juice, whatever this is the one that looks so cool. It looks so cool.
I kind of like popularized the beet juice thing.
You did, and it's because it looks cool. But beets are also freaking magic. They're magic for humans. Tell me why they're magic for cannabis, though. I know they're full of all sorts of good compounds.
So yeah, absolutely. So beets are really rich in prebiotics. They're great at feeding a wide diversity of biology because they have simple sugars. They also have complex sugars. And the simple sugars will be consumed very quickly by like bacillus species stuff, while the complex carbohydrates, polysaccharides, they take a little bit longer to break down. So you get like an initial burst of fuel and then like a prolonged burst of energy that the bacteria can feed on, but also that fungi can feed on as well. And there's a big long list of different polysaccharides of complex carbohydrates. And each of them are going to feed a slightly different diversity of biology. And then that different diversity of biology will have different diversities of enzymes, because bacteria secretes enzymes. And then the more diversity of enzymes that you have, the more potential cofactors you have for biosynthesizing volatile organic compounds. So we maximize our diversity of biology by maximizing our diversity of simple and complex
of food.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a really important distinction, Luna, because it's always like, add more microbes. Just add more microbes. Just throw on more.
You
Like
shouldn't
you
have
said,
to.
you should have a variety of food there. That's how you attract these things in the first place, right? As you put out food.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, once you introduce a bacteria or just any kind of microbe, as long as it has food, it'll stay there. So, you do an initial inoculation, and as long as your soil maintains a habitable, like, to be a habitable environment for that biology, it'll just stay there. So, we shouldn't have to continually add microbes and stuff like that if we're providing food sources for them.
That's great. And the diversity of food sources being just as important as the diversity of microbes. I never really put it together. And then, as you described, beets are like this powerhouse. They've got it all. It's a bunch of
Yeah,
different forms of simple energy.
that's right. And back to the beets. So, I kind of stumbled upon this when I was really big into making kombucha. I was
Nice.
using kombucha and lactic acid bacteria serum to treat powder mildew. And I noticed that powder mildew was being consumed faster with kombucha that had more carbonation in it. Like it like agitated the leaf surface because powder mildew tends to be a little bit hydrophobic. And so the more agitation that it had with carbonation, the more effective that it was at being
Shake it out
controlled.
of there, kind of fizz it on
Exactly.
out.
And
Whoa.
then it has like yeast and enzymes and different pH. I'm not sure exactly what the specific condition is that's treating it, but I noticed that it worked really well. Um, and so I was looking for different inputs to add that made the most carbonation. And I had a big vegetable garden at the time. And I used beets that I had grown. I used beet juice, and they were significantly more carbonated than anything else. And so I dove into like, what is it about beets? And it has a very, very diverse prebiotic, like polysaccharides, because polysaccharides are prebiotics, um, profile. And so I was like, I'm going to start just watering this into my soil. And I did, and it just became so obvious, the reaction. And then I got really into like polysaccharides, like, okay, like maybe I should look into more diversity of polysaccharides. And I found that this is a pretty normalized technique that people have been using in living soil, but aloe vera is a big one too. And so my go-to for like making compost teas will be to brew it with beet juice before the like when I mix them, when I have like my castings and stuff, I add beet juice, and then post brew, I add a little bit more beet juice and I add aloe vera to it, and my plants just rock when I do it.
Wow.
And that was like one of my big like recipes that people like really enjoyed and caught on to and started using, was like beet juice and aloe vera in compost teas.
That's absolutely brilliant. So can we just kind of side tangent for a second on aloe
Sure.
vera? Because I hear so many good things from, I mean, why don't you just talk about the many different benefits of using aloe vera on your plants?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key things to consider is an amino acid profile. Amino acids, there's so much to be said. I'm trying to figure out which order to
No, take your
how to
time.
explain it.
We can start on
So,
amino acids if you'd like. That sounds good.
yeah, let's start on amino acids.
Yeah.
So amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, right?
Mhm.
But they're also used and the proteins, they turn into enzymes. So having all the amino acids that you can possible in your soil and an abundance of them will lead to the soil like changing the structure of the amino acids into proteins and enzymes over time, right? So you're providing the building blocks that bacteria needs to create their own cells, as well as that the plant needs to create their own cells as well. So aloe vera has 19 out of the 20 amino acids that are found in nature. There's like 27 total, but there's 20 that are found in nature, and it has 19 of them. It also has a lot of enzymes just naturally in it,
Mhm.
but it has a great diversity of polysaccharides. The main one is called asamenin, and that is a very, very strong prebiotic as well. It also has saponins in it, so it's like a soapy kind of foamy, so it breaks hydrophobic tension
Mhm.
to allow for better water penetration. Um, as well as it has a lot of salicylic acid in it. And
Mhm.
salicylic acid will will promote what's called systemic acquired resistance,
Mhm.
which is like the plant's ability to defend itself from insects and stuff like that. But salicylic pathways also do is at the end of flower, when the plant stops directing energy towards bud swell, and it redirects energy towards resin production and aroma, those salicylic pathways can be triggered by salicylic acid, and you can actually get more expression of resin and like more resin presence and aroma by adding salicylic acid late in flower
Yeah.
as well, which is
Spike
something
that
that
salicylic acid. It's another stress hormone, right? Like you said, when
yeah.
bugs are chewing on it, it'll release salicylic acid through the system, which is in a way a stress hormone.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. That's great. So aloe helps with all of those things. I had no idea that 19
Not
out
at all.
of 20 amino acids known to the scientific world are in aloe. That is quite a fact. That's incredible.
It's great. I mean, aloe vera is, it's a staple in my garden.
It's absolute core of your garden. That's fantastic. And you mix that with the beet juice. And why do those work so well together?
They just have different prebiotics that each doesn't have.
Yeah.
So we create a diversity of it. I've played a lot with adding a bunch of different prebiotics to like a compost tea and introducing them at the same time as the compost tea. So another big one is chitin, which you can be found in like crab shells, shrimp shells, the exoskeletons of insects and stuff like that. And so insect frass is really high in chitin, which is a prebiotic, which is a complex carbohydrate, a polysaccharide. But when you think of food sources and you think of sugars, people often think of just like granulous sugar, but chitin is a fibrous polysaccharide that creates the shell of these like exoskeleton life forms, right? So it breaks down differently, but it's still a food source, but it's not like a sugar the way that we think of it, right? So when making my teas and adding, different diversities of these food sources like insect frass, aloe vera, beet juice, I try to cover all my bases as much as I can to make sure I introduce all of the polysaccharides that I can so I can maximize diversity of stuff. And that might sound like, oh, I'm adding like all this stuff, but we add them in pretty small amounts so that we're not overfeeding our biology because we can spike bacteria too much and create imbalance in our soil food web. And that's where microscopy comes into play.
That's a very good point. So you're monitoring all of this. I see that in organic gardening a lot, especially when people will switch over from a traditional style or a bottled style. They'll get into living soil and you come with this mentality of add. Every day you're adding. Every time you fertigate, you're adding. And sometimes that can throw off the balance, like you said. So can you talk about like keeping balance and then, as you said, using your microscope to kind of double check what's going on and see if this stuff is working?
Yeah, for sure. So first we're going to have our balance of nutrients, which is different ratios. And I'm not going to go through all of them. And I encourage people to look up soil mineral balance.
Lots of calcium.
Calcium to be exact, between 60 and 70% calcium to be exact.
Right.
And so when it comes to microscopy and balancing a soil food web, we have different counts of bacteria that we want to see in what's called a field view, which would be just what you can see when you look through the microscope.
On a screen? That's pretty simple. You count them?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Well, you have like a general idea, right?
Yeah.
You'll take your slide and then you'll have like, 100 different field views in it. And each field view is just what you can see at one given time on your microscope slide. And so we know that we want to see about one ciliate per field view. And then we want to see one like amoeba per 10 field view. And then and so we can look at our soil, we can scope it. We take, 1 part soil to 10 parts water, clean water, preferably distilled. And we shake it up. We let it sit for about 10, 15 minutes and we put it on our slide. We let that sit for about 10, 15 minutes also, so that's not all swimming around and stuff like that. And then we can see how much bacteria we want in one field view. And if we don't have enough, we can make either a top dress, which I prefer to do, or we can custom tailor a compost tea to introduce it as well. And how we do that is we introduce different food sources to our inoculant in a compost tea, and then the duration at which we let the compost tea go will change the profile of the biology within that compost tea. For example, we have ciliates, which are protozoa, which are a crucial part of nutrient cycling. They're like our little predators. Protozoa are like the first animals is what they call them. And like our evolutionary understanding of how like life came to be. And so these protozoas, they're the predators. They eat bacteria. The bacteria, they break down organic matter. And then when the protozoa eat the bacteria, once they have their excrements, they're now changed chemically into a plant available form. So we need our protozoa. So when we let a compost tea go for longer, it gives protozoa a chance to multiply in larger numbers. So if we see that our soil has a lot of bacteria but not enough protozoa, we will make a compost tea that usually goes about 30 hours, 30 to 36. Wow. And we'll have a higher protozoa population, and then we introduce it and we'll increase our nutrient cycling when doing so. Or if we want to make a compost tea where we're adding a bunch of nutrient sources at the end of the brew, like let's say we're adding like corn steep powder or something, or something just like dissolvable that we need like a quick hit of that nutrient in the living soil system, we'll let our compost tea go for longer, and so that it consumes those nutrients, and then it's immediately available when we hit it into the soil.
Right,
So,
funneling it through that biology. But
yeah.
the protozoa being crucial here, because like you said, if we're loading it up with the bacteria, we need something to eat those bacteria, digest it, and make it available.
Yeah, so there's a flagellate, there's rotifers, there's there are flagella, rotifers, ciliates, amoebas, and then there's a whole bunch of different like species within those categories as well, and it's really interesting to kind of play around with. But all of those protozoa, they're going to consume bacteria, and then their excrement will make the nutrients more readily available. And depending on your cultivation style, let's say so like what I typically see is people who aren't using companion plants, they typically have, or like a cover crop of living mulch, they typically have a bacteria dense soil that doesn't have enough ciliates. And then people who are using mulches, like living mulches, they have a lot of ciliates in the surface layer. And this is because of like the concentration of root exudates at that surface layer allow for a lot of bacteria to bloom. And when there's a lot of bacterial bloom, ciliates come in and consume it to like keep the balance. So like
Mm.
using a living mulch will actually stimulate the nutrient cycling for several reasons. One, because of the biology profile like present in that surface area, but also because the root exudates that are the enzymes, carbohydrates, amino acids, they act as chelators to cycle nutrients faster as well.
Oh my gosh,
Mm.
that's
So
fantastic.
I know that a lot of people, they will do like they'll broadcast seed, they'll let it sprout, and then those seeds, they have a lot of enzymes in it, and then they till it into the soil to decompose, and they're adding a lot of enzymes like initially when they're starting their cycle, which is
Yeah.
a great practice. Some people do, some people don't. While a living mulch would be like what I have going on currently with my setup, where I have like a thick mat of alyssum flowers that stay in my grow the entire time, which I use for like moisture retention as well as nutrient cycling purposes. And it allows me to hit my plants with a lot of bacteria because I know I have a lot of ciliates in my soil.
That's fantastic. That was going to be my next question, which is what are you growing? I've heard people grow clover for a living mulch. I've heard that clover is tasty to spider mites, so some people go for other flowers. You said the sweet alyssum are like little white flowers, like beautiful little white
Yeah.
flowers, right? I
Yeah.
love sweet alyssum. That's a great choice, and that makes so much sense. There's a lot that goes on in that top layer, isn't there, Luna? Like you said,
Oh,
what
absolutely.
cannabis goes deep, and it's like that top layer is necessary for boron consumption and production, bioavailability. It's crucial. It dries out when it's not mulched. That's a really good piece of advice, to get some living mulch growing in that top layer.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are different plants that are going to be more or less susceptible to insect pressure,
Yeah.
and people have been typically prioritizing like nitrogen fixing things or phosphorus or potassium, whatever. In my outdoor grow where I grew my big plants, I did a lot of buckwheat, which it secretes phosphatases, which is an enzyme that makes phosphorus more available, and phosphorus can be a difficult nutrient to like unlock for the plants. So that was one that I focused on. I used buckwheat. Um, in my indoor like tent grow that I'm currently doing, I've used sweet alyssum, which is not susceptible to aphids or spider mites, because I feel like using dynamic accumulators, which are these ones that are like nitrogen fixers, or like they bring out potassium or phosphorus from deep in the soil. That isn't really and people might disagree with me, but I feel like it isn't super applicable in an indoor situation. Like if you're going to be bioremediating a field, having a lot of dynamic accumulators is going to be a really great benefit for over time fixing your soil. While when we have like a custom built, like really, really meticulous soil that, someone spent a lot of like time on balancing and stuff like that, pulling nitrogen from the air to add to the soil with like a few, like clovers or something, I feel like isn't a great prioritization. Um,
Yeah, it's not as much of a game changer in like a modified growing medium. You're totally right.
No, it's not. It has the potential to be attacked by spider mites and aphids. And then like we have people like to use beans, which I don't want a plant climbing up my plant, suffocating it. You know what I mean? Or like vetch, which like has like spiky little things on it. They're gonna poke me, or like
True.
nettle or something like that. Which all these are great dynamic accumulators, but I don't really want them in my tent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or in an indoor situation. What my priority is going to be moisture retention, nutrient cycling, and avoiding pest pressure. Um, And so alyssum came to mind because it has all those qualities, but also it's really pretty and it
Yeah.
looks great to have flowering white and purple flowers in my soil pots, my soil beds with my plants. And so yeah, I'm running sweet alyssum.
That's great. And like you said, it looks good too. So you got to make the garden look nice.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
key. That's the aesthetic portion. But let's say somebody is watching this and they're really excited about how you're making a lot of this stuff at home. Like you said, you're closing the loops on a lot of this stuff. The beet
Mhm.
juice, the aloe, that's a great start. What are some other like super effective or just super easy homemade inputs for my audience to begin playing around with?
So making fermented plant extracts, I think, is the big one that people should all get into. So that starts with collecting lactobacillus on a carbohydrate source, which people typically use rice wash, right? They'll take rice, they'll add like a clean water source to it, either shake it up or let it sit overnight, and then filter out the rice. And then you take the rice wash, you put like a paper towel or some kind of mesh over the top so bugs don't get in it. And some people just like to put it inside and let it collect bacteria. I personally like to put it outdoors, like under like a some kind of canopy, like a brush or a bush or trees or whatever. Like find an area where I think is biologically active, and I put my vessel there to collect bacteria. And then you take 10 parts milk to 1 part your rice wash and you mix them together. They'll ferment over a course of 3 to 4 days and separate into like a curds and whey. And then you can take that cheese layer off and you're left with lactic acid bacteria serum, which can be used as an inoculant in itself, which is great at what's called competitive exclusion. So it fights off like bad biology, bad bacteria, and potential like pathogen sources. Or you can then take it one step further and make fermented plant extract where you add different plant matter to it and it'll break it down. It'll extract well, not extract, but through like osmosis and consumption of the cells, it'll release organic acids and enzymes and some nutrients as
Mhm.
well. Oh, I have that process outlined on my Instagram a few different times. And if someone wants to message me, they can't find it. I'm happy to send it to them.
But it
But
all
there's also
starts with that labs,
online.
right? That's the
Yeah,
key.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or you can just take it and add molasses to it, and then add 20 parts, like equal parts lactic acid, bacteria serum, and molasses, and then 20 parts water, and extend it into like a large amount of inoculant. Like, let's say if you have a big field and you need a whole bunch of it, you can take 4 gallons worth of milk and 4 gallons worth of molasses and make a huge 55-gallon barrel and inoculate your entire field for like whatever it is, like
Next
$40
to
or something
nothing.
like
Go
that.
get some expired milk on sale. It'll
Yeah,
do
exactly.
great. It's
Mhm.
it's really a fantastic way to get started. Now, what are your top choices to ferment? Now we've got this lactobacillus, and you can make FP out of like a variety of plants, right? What are your favorite ones to ferment down and why?
So, I encourage people to find things in their local environment because
Yeah.
I think so. Yes, there are definitely you can play around with like chasing different phytohormones, right? So we can use like willow, which has a lot of auxin in it, and like willow bark that we can ferment, or we can do what I was talking about, premature fruits and berries, for jasmonic acid and stuff like that. But you can go as far as to find cytokinins and gibberellins for different growth phases to then integrate and have several different fermented plant extracts to stimulate the plant in different like periods of its growth cycle where those phytohormones are more needed, right?
Mhm.
So I encourage people to look into what they have in their local environment so that you can go out and collect it. But you're also always able to go to the grocery store and find things and ferment them. But the organic acid density and enzyme activity and stuff like that is going to be lower and all that like store-bought produce. So I definitely recommend people to like look around in their local environment. Like if you have a bunch of dandelions growing everywhere, like go cut the heads off all your dandelions before they start throwing seed and make a ferment with it. Or if you have like Queen Anne's lace or something like that, or blackberries growing in your yard, or if you're growing food and let's say you had a gourd go bad, do that. Or, you had some cantaloupe that, got spoiled, had some pest pressure, use those. Or you can use them, like the good ones too, if you want. Um,
Pumpkins. We're about to be carving our pumpkins. Nothing wrong with the pumpkin FPE, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And then as they start to like wilt and you don't want them on your deck anymore, you can throw them in your uh, your FPE.
Back from whence you came.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the earth from whence you came.
That's
But some
really
of my
cool.
favorite to answer your question are
Mhm.
going to be premature blackberries, premature apples, premature pears, premature peaches, beets. aloe vera. I like doing pumpkin. I like doing cantaloupe.
Very fibrous, lots of fiber. I'm hearing a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
This sounds like in all those things that you're mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of my favorite ones, if you can get a hold of it, fresh bamboo shoots. Like before they start getting woody and fibrous, if you can find bamboo that's shooting, it's gold. Because
Brilliant, because
it's one of
it
the
grows
fastest
so
growing.
fast, right?
Right.
Wow.
It's one of the fastest growing plants in I think it is the fastest growing plant in nature, right? Up to like a couple feet a day or something like that. That when they're shoots, like if you catch like a thick piece of bamboo as a shoot and chop it and ferment it, it's like the reaction that you see from it because it has such high like phytohormone density in it, because it's meant to grow super fast. If you throw that on your veg plants, it's unreal. It's unreal. And I don't
Bamboo,
have
that's
any access to it. It's just a place that I live. But when I lived in California, it was growing in my backyard, and I integrated it into my garden, and it actually created problems because the plants were growing too fast.
the bamboo FPE rocket fuel.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Cool.
This episode flew by. We did not get to everything. I hope that's all right. It was an
That's fine.
amazing first appearance. Absolutely incredible. At Loon All Day is where you're at on Instagram. Where can people find more of your work? Or if somebody's looking for seeds or just looking to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
So I have a website, moongrownbotanicals.com, where I have all my genetics that I've bred. Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about it. You can find me on my Instagram at Luna All Day, LUNALLDAY. I'm friendly. Feel free to message me. I do have a Patreon, Discord. You can check my link in my bio. I have a Patreon. You can jump in my Discord, where I have all my recipes outlined, and I talk about a lot of these concepts. And I teach people how to do them and integrate them step by step as well.
And what will we find on the website?
My
Talk
seeds.
about that for a second.
My seeds. That's where you can find my genetics. I have a lot of really unique, fast-growing, vigorous, living soil seeds. And like my big plants and stuff that you can see on my profile, they're all those genetics. I grow all my own stuff. And so if you see anything that I'm growing, it's something that I've made.
Fantastic. And you've worked a lot of skunk. You've worked a lot of cheese, right?
Yeah. Cheese and skunk are my two big ones. I recently did a feminized skunk line that was hunted out of, it was a collaboration project between me and Frank at Purple Caper. And he hunted through like 250 skunk seeds that he collected from all over the world, and isolated it down to 3 different ones that we used in our breeding project. And we added them to some other kind of skunky lineage things, including my lunar cheese. And then I have my lunar cheese line and then my raspberry moon cheese line. And so I do a lot of cheese and skunk stuff.
I heard the moon's made out of it, so that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
And that's cool. You're working with Purple Caper. We support that over here. That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's cool.
Give out that URL one more time.
It's moongrownbotanicals.com.
moongrownbotanicals.com. Go and get it, everybody. I know that you enjoyed this episode. Message Luna. Say, hey, I loved hearing you on Growcast. We always appreciate it when you share the love. Thank you, Luna, for coming on today.
Yeah,
fantastic episode.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, dear listener. Stay tuned. Hit like if you learned something. Share this episode with the Grow Me. Really helps us out here at Growcast. And until next time, this is Luna and Jordan signing off saying, have a great day out there. Be safe. Stick around with Growcast. You never have to grow alone. Bye-bye, everybody. Peace. That's our show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Luna Whitcomb for coming on the show. Really great episode. I know you enjoyed it. If you're into natural farming, you need to come to the Growcast OK Calyx Natural Farming Immersive. Every single autumn we throw this class. It's October 11th and 12th. Go to growcast.com/events to learn more. OK Calyx is going to host on his property and teach you how to make all these different inputs and how to really close the loop on your gardening so you never have to go buy fertilizer again. You learn all the stages of IMO. You learn about labs. You learn about FPEs. You learn it all at this class. Day 1 for beginners, day 2 for advanced or returning students. If you're coming from out of state, go ahead and DM me. I'll even give you a code or shoot us an email, contact@growcast.com. I'll see you there, everybody. Growcast.com/events. We're down there October 11th and 12th in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. See you there, everyone. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Be safe out there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Grazers or things that are going to consume the plant that we have to fill in on our own.
Go around and chew on the plants. I know what you're saying.